Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. This is Drew, and today I'm going to be giving my full review of Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Now, I only had the pleasure of riding this coaster once, so do take this whole review with a little grain of salt when I get to the actual ride itself, because I only got to sit in one seat instead of all 8, and I couldn't have gotten the best grasp on this ride, but to really get things rolling, we got to talk about where this coaster is in the park first. So, as soon as you head into Fiesta Texas, make sure you go all the way to Boomerang Coast to Coaster and go just to the left of that until you pretty much hit a dead end with this coaster being there. It is kind of in the back left corner of the park, not the farthest back and not farthest left, but it is right there in the far reaches of this entire amusement park. I went for opening day, which was May 12th, 2018, and we actually got stopped by an opening ceremony hosted by Six Flags Fiesta Texas that actually delayed the opening of the ride until about 11:15 when the park opened at 10:30. So that was a little annoying, but it was cool to see an actual opening. So I'll give props to Six Flags for that. They brought out Wonder Woman and the park president and even like a state senator. It was cool to see a whole opening ceremony, but everyone was just really trying to get as close as possible to be first in line, and that did kind of create a mess, but the park handled it really well and made us all get into one single file line before we even got to the entrance, and everything went really smoothly from there. So immediately as you walk towards this ride, you will see a statue of Wonder Woman herself and this nice entrance sign that is very Greco-Roman styled with some nice signage, I will add. It really looks nice, but you get this great view of the coaster behind it with it being a very open archway. And I actually really enjoy the color scheme on this coaster. When I first saw it, I thought that it kind of reminded me of just a long French fry, but seeing it in person, it looks 10 times better than it does on any screen or in any rendering. Also, there is a tester seat just to the left of the entrance of the ride. I got to try it out. The tester seat wasn't very comfortable, at least for my collarbones. It really liked to clamp down with the comfort collars, but it didn't really equate to what the ride felt like, at least in my experience. But it's really great that Six Flags Fiesta Texas offers a tester seat just to make sure you can fit properly and securely on the ride. So before you know it, you're in the queue for the ride. This queue is kind of set up really weirdly. If you're standing in the queue, there's just technically one queue. There's one pathway, but it splits in two lines for some reason. On the left, if you stand off to the left side of the queue, you're in standby, but if you go to the right, you're in flash pass and single rider, but there was no split between that. So it was really confusing, so I ended up waiting about 15 to 20 minutes in the standby, and then I was like, no one's walking through single rider, can I ride single rider, because I'm a single rider? And they were like, yeah, go for it. And I completely skipped the rest of the standby. I actually did not get to see the full queue housing that they have. I know there's a statue of Wonder Woman in there and more Greco-Roman architecture, but I ended up just going straight into the station. And the system itself is a little weird, but hopefully they'll fix it soon with some like barriers, making it 2 separate queues instead of just the one, because it really does get confusing. And otherwise, I think they would save some time and money overall with not having employees have to stand and walk and pace around the standby line to make sure no one's moving about. It was just kind of weird to me. The station itself is more Greco-Roman architecture, of course, tying back to that Wonder Woman theme, and the way they load on this ride is very interesting to me. It's actually a rolling station, so the trains roll through the station. They do not stop ever. But before you actually get on the train, you have to line up on a number, a colored number, going 1 through 8. There are 4 different colors. There's a red, a yellow, a blue, and then there's a light blue as well. So they will actually place you in those lines before you get set up to get on to ride, and then it will go one line by line, depending on the train that's in station. So I got placed in row 7 on the dark blue, and I really thought this helped everything go smoothly. Everything wasn't confusing, and it was very smooth how everything went. Also, another nice thing that Six Flags Fiesta Texas has done is that a ride attendant will actually take your belongings and put it in a cubby on the other side of the track, so you don't have to cross over with the moving train. So you just hand your stuff to the attendant, they will put your stuff away, and you sit down and you get ready to ride. Now let's get on to the important thing, the ride itself. This thing actually blew me away. I will be completely honest in saying that I was not expecting how good this ride was actually going to be. The seats themselves were not annoying at all. They didn't hurt. They weren't uncomfortable. They were actually very, very comfortable. It didn't even feel like I had a restraint on at times. It was a little tight in the very beginning, but during the ride, it was not noticeable that there were comfort collars really, besides on like the ejector airtime moments. And yes, there were a couple. And since this is the world's first single rail coaster, a lot of people have been asking whether it's weird that you are sitting on top of the track with one leg on either side. I honestly didn't feel too much of a difference. It felt super comfortable. It wasn't really crazy to me. I actually felt more comfortable with one seat per row than 2 or 4 especially. There was so much room to move around, like I wasn't elbowing anyone, which is a main complaint I have with a lot of like B&Ms. I'm always hitting someone regardless, but it felt super comfortable. It was super open. You could literally extend your arm as far as you wanted and not be in anyone else's way. Now let's finally get on to the ride itself. You start out with going straight up a lift hill that's about 45 degrees, and then the insaneness happens. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to say it regardless. You hit this turnaround, which is a nice turnaround. It's nothing really too noticeable, but it really does get your adrenaline pumping. Then you hit the 90-degree drop, which actually wasn't as ejector-filled as I thought it would be. And I was in the second to back row, and it was still not as crazy as I thought it would be. But that's probably just because it was a straight drop and not a turning drop, which I really have found out that I really like turning drops, especially with Iron Rattler. Holy cow. But we'll get to that later. I really enjoyed the drop, though. It was over super quickly. But yeah, let's move on to the second element of this ride, a down Raven turn. So originally I thought, why not just call it a dive loop? But after actually being on the down Raven turn, I can tell why it's not called a dive loop. This thing actually gives you sideways airtime as you enter it. So you actually get a pop of airtime before you fully turn, and you're about 90 degrees when you get that pop of airtime, but then you get forced right back into your seat as you hit the main part of the element. Immediately after you hit an off-axis airtime hill, now everyone was saying this was the most airtime-filled part of the ride. I actually didn't feel too much just straight up airtime. It felt more like a lateral hill than anything. There was a great pop of ejector airtime, I will tell you that, but it was more noticeable with the laterals that it pulled than the actual ejector airtime that it had. It really flings you from side to side, which was very nice. I always enjoy nice laterals on a coaster. Now, immediately after this, you have a quick turnaround, which actually made me gray out just a little bit. Everyone was saying that it was super forceful, but it wasn't too forceful for me, but it was forceful enough to, I grayed out a little bit, so definitely forceful enough. Then probably my favorite part of the ride was right after that, right after the little quick bank turns. You hit this nice 45-degree angle hill that has an insane head chopper with one of the supports. It was the most noticeable head chopper I think that I've had in a long time, besides maybe some of the other RMCs that I've ridden, but it was really nice to have that, especially with the ejector airtime that I got on that. And then immediately after that, you hit a cutback, which does give you a little pop of like a tiny bit of hang time, but not too much. And then you hit a 0G roll, which also gives you a little bit of hang time. But both these elements are done super quickly that it's really hard to actually be able to take in those elements after one ride, which is making me sadder that I didn't ride it more than one time. But immediately after the 0G/corkscrew, I don't know what I would call it. It kind of feels more like a corkscrew, but you do hit a quick little turnaround, and then you get a pop of airtime right before you hit the brake run. So the brake run itself is actually very bumpy. Every time you go over a drive tire or a brake itself, the train gets pushed up a little bit, just like on Matterhorn bobsleds. If you've ever ridden that, it does have like a pressure brake that will push upwards, and yeah, it's a little weird how much it bumps, but it's okay because it's not actually during the ride itself. The ride itself, besides the brake run, is smooth as butter. Absolutely incredibly smooth. No complaints for me on the smoothness. Didn't bump around, didn't rattle, none of that. Super smooth. Then after you get back to the station, you are let off one by one, row by row, and you walk to the right side, pick up your belongings in one of the bins, and then you walk kind of under the coaster in the exit queue until you get to the gift shop. The gift shop has your on-ride photo, which also is actually right after the cutback, or as the park likes to call it, the stall. It's not really a stall, it's a cutback. And then they also have a bunch of Wonder Woman merch, including some custom t-shirts, which I actually didn't buy any, but I was very tempted to. But after one ride on Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster, I gotta rate this thing a 9 out of 10. It is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to see what RMC will do with the Raptor track in the future, because it was one of the most comfortable experiences I've ever had on a coaster. It felt more natural, if that makes any sense. And I really can't wait to get back down to San Antonio to ride this thing again. It really blew my expectations out of the water, and it really makes me eager to ride Railblazer and all the other Raptors that end up popping up in the next couple of years. Hopefully we'll even see a Hyper Raptor, because I think the possibilities would be endless with that thing, especially with how quick Wonder Woman is throughout the whole layout. I can't wait to see what else RMC will conjure up with this amazing type of track. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out all the links in the description below. And of course, as always, we'll see you on the next ride.